Right, good evening everybody. Welcome all to this meeting. Oh, I'll just read this out first, sorry. May I remind everyone present that this meeting is being broadcast live via YouTube and the recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all councillors and officers ensure that when they speak, they switch their microphones on, and when they have finished speaking, switch their microphones off. This is extremely important for the live stream to ensure that the cameras will be focused on the individual who is speaking. And welcome all of you to the meeting of the Scrutiny and Regeneration Development and Market Hall Committee on Monday the 13th of October 2025. Have we any apologies? Thank you. Item 2, is there any declarations of interest? Do any councillors have any declarations of interest to declare on the items under discussion at this evening's meeting? No? Okay, thank you. Item 3, to consider any urgent business brought forward to the meeting under Rule 12. I'm not aware of any urgent business for consideration at this meeting. Item 4, we have not received any questions from members of the public. Item 5, we have also not received any questions from members of the committee. Item 6, the public minutes of the previous meeting on the 10th of July. I propose that the approval of the public minutes from the previous meeting, do I have a seconder? Councillor Lott. We now go to the vote. All those in favour? None against then? Any abstentions? No. Okay, thank you. Item 7. Scrutiny Review Programme update. If Sean could please provide us with an update, please.
Thank you, Chair. As you're aware, the Scrutiny Committee has initiated a formal review of Burton Market Hall through the development of an initial scoping paper. This document outlines the key areas of focus for the review, including an assessment of current performance, identification of opportunities for improvement, and the exploration of strategic options for future development. To support the Committee's work, officers have been undertaking background research and data gathering activities. This has included engagement with a range of stakeholders, notably the markets team, to ensure a comprehensive understanding of operational challenges and successes. Recognising the importance of trader insight, the committee agreed that direct feedback from market hall traders would be essential to the review. A tailored questionnaire was developed and distributed to traders over recent weeks. The chair of the committee has emphasised the importance of receiving responses promptly to ensure that the perspectives of traders are fully considered in the next phase of the review. Once this feedback has been received, officers will analyse the responses and compile the findings into a structured data set. This information will be presented to the committee for detailed consideration. Officers will support the committee in drafting a formal report which addresses the core questions outlined in the scoping paper and formulate a set of evidence-based recommendations. These recommendations will be submitted to Cabinet for further discussion and potential implementation. There have also been discussions at previous committee meetings in relation to the work being undertaken at the Market Hall. This has been followed up with relevant officers and they have provided an update. Work on the Market Hall roof is now well underway, with scaffolding being erected both externally and internally. This will obviously facilitate access to the roof area and allow the contractor to begin replacing the polycarbonate with glazing and also to replace the slate tiling to the front of the building. As has been previously flagged, one of the key issues affecting the project has been the need to work around ecological issues, specifically in relation to bats. This has meant the project has a specific time period within which works can be carried out. This is between September and March of next year. The project is currently on target to be completed within this time period. If members of the committee would like to visit the site and have a look at the works in progress, this can be arranged with the contractor, and if anyone would like to attend, if you just let me know, I can sort that out. I'll hand back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any questions at all? Okay.
It's now a considerable time since I took exception to the statement that the maintenance plan for the Market Hall was a good one. It's been 2 years since Labour took over the administration, and during that time the debris which accrue in the roof guttering were already there but have been added to since. I notice with interest that it's now a finable crime if the council so wished to place an order against individuals, that the people who don't clean their roof gutters could suffer. And I find it quite amusing that we should have that ability when we don't even clean our own. So the question is, I know that they're doing the roof. Have we included ancillary work like the cleaning of gutters because they're up there already, rather than having to spend money making a specific venture to just do the gullies? So is it on the list of works to be done?
Is that on the list of works, Sean?
I don't know everything that is on the list of works, but I can ask the officers and come back with a response on that particular one.
Yeah, if you would please, and report back to this committee. Yeah,
I can report back to the entire committee.
Thank you, Councillor Huckabee. Any more questions? No? Okay.
In minutes from previous different meetings, there was a question mark as to whether the 2.5 million that had been requested of the original Solihull and GB SLEP granting facility, there was indications that had failed, although we were told that it was successful. I think the successful bit was the fact that the postman had actually delivered it through the right letterbox, so that the success was that they'd received it. So has there been any movement on this? There were some indications that things weren't as bad as first thought, or as that, because GB SLEP has been abandoned when the government said that it's got to be covered by management of the county council, I think, the county council area. So that money moved, or that grant request moved from GB SLEP, which is no longer existing, into another structure, which I presume was the county council or an appendage to that. Because in my mind, the amount of money we're spending on the town, on the Market Hall, would be insufficient for the new plans that we have for it when they are realised. And I'm just wondering whether, given the economic situation of the country, where things are being cancelled because of the lack of funds from central government or from its appendages, that we might have a Market Hall that is fit for use, but not be able to fund that particular structure that needs to be in place for it to be used.
Would you like, Sean, have you got an answer for that, Sean, or would you like to take that back?
Yeah, no, sorry, I'll have to speak to officers and come back to the committee on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay then, thank you. We'll go on to item 8. A list of public executive decisions have been circulated with the agenda. Does anyone have any questions on any of these? No? Okay, thank you. Item 9, the date of the next meeting is the 15th of January 2026. To confirm the date, 15th of January 2026. Item 10, I now invite Sean to provide a performance report of the corporate plan for quarter 1. Please note that appendices 2, 3 and 4 will be considered in the private part of the meeting. So if councillors have any questions to discuss on these sections, please raise them in the private part of the meeting at item 11. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an update on the 2025-26 Quarter 1 Performance Report, which reviews the Council's progress towards achieving its corporate priorities between April and June of 2025, along with the latest updates on the leisure contract, the Towns Fund programme and the insourcing of grounds maintenance. For the corporate plan, each target has been graded using the usual traffic light system, and of the 85 live targets, 90.59% are green, 7.06% are amber, and 2.35% are red. The tables on pages 8 and 9 of the covering report show further analysis, including how those percentages break down across the corporate priorities, as well as individual cabinet portfolios. Red and amber targets are detailed in Table 3 on pages 10 through 13 of the report, and these include some commentary to provide additional context around the circumstances with each of those targets. Table 4 details the corporate target on waste reduction to be agreed post-outturn, while Table 5 highlights a target proposed for deletion. These are on pages 13 and 14 of the report, respectively. Appendix 1 includes comprehensive data on all the indicators within the corporate plan. There are 2 recommendations of the report, the first to agree the target detailed in Table 4, and the second to consider the overall report. I'll hand back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Sean. Are there any questions? Councillor Lott.
Thank you. I have a question in relation to Corporate Plan Performance Target PES 10, Take Forward Regeneration in Uttoxeter. The Bradley Street toilets, currently showing as red and off target. Now, I understand Uttoxeter Town Council asked for the works to be delayed past June because of the food festival. I understand that. But it says that you're considering transfer of the toilets to Uttoxeter Town Council. I was under the impression the devolution statements we've had indicates we shouldn't give away facilities that we have to other councils. So I was wondering if that's been revisited since that sentence was written.
Again, apologies, but I will have to take this back to the Regen team. But I would assume that because this covers Quarter 1, that obviously things have moved along quite a bit from June in terms of reorganisation, that will be a consideration in that. But I will get an answer from the Regen team and come back to the committee.
Thank you. Any more questions?
It's just a comment, really, or an observation. You mentioned ID Verd in the minutes. I noticed that ID Verd has stopped watering the hanging baskets in Burton High Street with the consequential death of them, whereas others, notably those hanging in the dog, or in the front of the dog, had been watered and were still blooming. I just wonder, do we check on whether people are doing this subcontract work for us, or are we just desk jockeys and sit here and hope for the best? Because it does seem to me that if we're a tourist town, where our wealth generation is primarily to come from, that we ought to make continuous observations of the state of the details of what brings tourists to Burton. Sorry if I sound critical, but those poor plants, I could hear them crying as I walked past.
So just on that point, so there is a service level agreement with ID Verdi and the council. So the open spaces team do have things in place to check with them. But I will raise this, obviously, if it's been noticed by you that potentially there is an issue with the high street. So
the checks were done and the person doing the checks was indifferent to the state of the flowers contained within the hanging baskets?
Sorry, as in that the officers will check with ID Verdi. I don't know if that's physical checks or whether that's just they run through a checklist, but there is something in place in terms of them understanding the work that has and hasn't been done.
You say that, but hanging baskets are notorious for drying out pretty quick, especially in warm weather. And it needs more than just an assurance from the contractor that things are being done. It needs for somebody to physically go out there and experience what is in reality happening.
Yeah, I do know that the Open Spaces team have been out to visit some of the roundabouts as an example with some of the issues that we face there. I will have to check regarding the hanging baskets. What I would say is in previous years we've had a lot more issues with the hanging baskets in terms of watering, especially sort of last year. Those have decreased this year in terms of complaints from people who have sponsored them. So I'm assuming that there has been an improvement, but I will check with Open Spaces.
I need to apologise. I realise that you personally don't know, but you come here as the front line. So whatever questions that are for people in further lines back, I have to ask you.
I'm not sure whether the dog hanging baskets, do they water them themselves? Is that part of the ID Verde contract? Amount of water, and these sustain the hanging baskets better than the old dog baskets, which were just wiring with a bit of fern in the bottom or whatever it is, and the water just used to drain through and drop onto the pavement below. These stay alive a lot longer, or wet a lot longer. But it became so obvious that the watering hadn't been done. They were all down the high street, were all dying and then dead a few days later. So if we're going to, we're not hopefully going to employ ID Verde much longer, and we're going to be in control of our own destiny in that sense. But our attention to detail on these projects, like down on the Washlands play area, it needs to be somebody with authority on the ground looking and seeing what's happening. It's no good responding to public complaints or whatever. We have to be in control because we've spent a lot of money down there, and there needs to be a lot of follow-on. Otherwise, the first day is great when the politician is there for the opening ceremony and the plaque is nailed to the wall. The day after, it starts to fall apart. Okay, thank you, Councillor Humphrey. Any more questions? Councillor Clark.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. One thing, just more of a general statement for the committee to consider from a value for money perspective, is the insourcing of the grounds maintenance contract in light of the local government reorganisation and the costs that potentially go into that for a service that would be in-house for a matter of months before it then transfers to another organisation. Looking through the included attachments as well, as part of this report, it mentions that it's on track from a cost perspective, but a lot of the costs at the moment look just to be consultancy costs, and those identified within the report further to that are then staffing costs rather than capital expenditure costs. But it's something that we should probably be mindful and potentially want to review at some point around what those spiralling costs potentially are if the proposed local government reorganisation does go ahead, so we don't get to a point where the council's sinking a load of money into a project which actually might have limited impact or not be able to be implemented when that money could have been spent better elsewhere in the services that we could while we can.
Okay, any more questions, anyone?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The first one, of course, is that the priorities that we consider as a council as being top of the ladder will be perhaps discussed more widely by another group of people who have their own priorities. You know, if we're attached to Stoke, I could see that their priorities are going to take ascendance over ours. So this situation about assets, disposal of assets, and what assets you have, and what plans are in the pipeline, being started or just thought about, what have you, it's a big area of concern, and I think there's a special council meeting coming up to discuss the subject. Whether it's discussable at that level with just everybody around, whether the time is there or the detail is there and what have you, I think as a as a scrutiny committee, to do our jobs, we should be aware of these issues that are coming forward and actually develop a view of what questions we should ask, just in case they're not asked by anybody else, and view what those decisions are from what the Cabinet is deciding is the best course for us to do. This is called scrutiny. I'll add that Birmingham City Council wouldn't be in the same financial situation that they are in if the scrutiny committees had been working properly, because they would have questioned the expenditures going back over quite a few years and questioned the projects that they were getting involved in. I know a lot of it was to do with undue or unaccounted for pay rises, etc. But there are a lot of councils are running into these sorts of problems, and I think it's the scrutiny committees were there to actually oversee the good format of policies and whatever, to ensure that. And elsewhere, that doesn't seem to have been done. And I think we ought to realise just our position in these sorts of things.
Thank you, Councillor Huckabee. Right, we're going to any more questions at all, Sean? No? Right, we're going. We have 3 items to consider in the private part. So we'll move to do that now. So that's in accordance with section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972. The press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting, as it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, that there would be disclosed exempt information as defined in the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, indicated in brackets for each item number on the agenda. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shrive. All those for? None against then, and no abstentions. Thank you. Wait for the